Hello there. My cohort is the first to begin the new schedule for the Master's in General Psychology program. And since the website had some confusing information the last time I was there, I'm going to go ahead and give you an overview of the Master's program so you can get a sense for what this program does. So the program was originally designed, or not originally, it used to be a clinical master's program, but those faculty have left. The current iteration that's slightly changed this year is it's a program that's designed to be research focused so that people who have a bachelor's but aren't able to get into a PhD program can build their CV, their vita, and earn a spot at a PhD program, whether that's in clinical psychology or counseling psychology or social psychology or neuropsychology, whatever it is. And as such, the courses are fairly broad, and we'll get into that in a minute. There is a new feature, however, that I think was implemented starting with my year, but may have started a little bit the year before me. And this is a teaching track. So you have the option for, instead of a research capstone series, to take a teaching capstone series. So instead of research, what do we call it? I can't believe I've forgotten that. But we have it's thesis research. So thesis research and then thesis writing in the fall and spring of your final year. If you're on the teaching track, you would have a teaching preparation course in the fall, and then you teach an introductory psychology course in the spring. It's your final semester, your sort of capstone course, as I call it. Now, those courses change depending on which track you choose, and you choose that at the beginning of your first semester. I think we all had to pick within the first week or two. After that, the rest of the courses are the same for everybody. You'll have fall, you'll be taking a pro-seminar course, which is sort of topics in psychology as a job. So what are graduate schools like for PhD level? What sort of is employment like at a research institution or a school or a university? What do those look like? You'll be taking your research and design course, sort of an advanced version of what you have probably already taken as an undergraduate in psychology, and you'll have a univariate statistics, which is sort of a more advanced version of the statistics you learned in undergraduate. The first spring semester, you'll have a teaching seminar course. So this is not part of the teaching capstone. Everybody gets to take this. And it was a lot of repeated material because I'm already a certified teacher for elementary education. But I think it's very helpful if you don't have any of that teaching experience. You'll also be taking cognitive psychology and multivariate statistics. Multivariate statistics is sort of statistics in 3D space, so really moving into those areas of multiple analysis of variance, or what was that other fun one? Structural equation modeling, and well, that's probably a little bit more advanced than anybody will get into. Maybe it would be touched upon briefly, but sort of that canonical correlation and all those other complicated multivariate statistical analysis procedures. Then for the fall, your second fall, you'll be taking your capstone course, so either the teaching or the research capstone, sort of course one, we'll call it. Then you'll have a developmental psychology course and a biological psychology course. In the following semester, your final semester, the second spring semester, you'll have the psychopathology, what some people call abnormal psych, and then social psychology, and your final capstone course, whether that's in the teaching or research track. Now for univariate statistics, research design, cognitive, developmental, biological, psychopathology, and social, those courses are really just more advanced versions of the undergraduate. There will be a lot of familiar material, but there's a lot of nuances added, and more of a greater depth of understanding is required. I was fortunate enough to be a teaching assistant for the professor who taught our cognitive psychology course, and I've TA'd 2 of his undergraduate cognitive courses, and I could see that a lot of the same material is covered, but there's a higher standard for what we're required to know at the graduate level in terms of brain areas and the specificity with which we describe actions such as the action potential or the sight pathways, and it's actually very challenging. There are other courses in the catalog, and if you go to the program website, you might find them. However, those are on ice, at least for the time being. They're on ice instead of being removed, because if they're on ice, they can be brought back at any time with minimal paperwork. But if they cut them from the course catalog, they have to go through a whole course vetting process to bring them back, and it sounds like that's a lot of trouble. And given what I've seen of all the grant writing and the teaching, grading, documentation that goes on, I'd believe that it would be a difficult process to bring a course back. The program has some very good research opportunities, I'd say. The opportunities to work on professors' research, I'd say, are okay. You have a couple of professors who are actively running labs, and then a few more who are willing to sponsor research out of their lab if you're interested in sort of running the project. So they would be interested in this idea. They have this study sort of designed, but they don't have the time to run it themselves. So if you come in, you can step in and run that project for them. That would be a good experience. And then you have a subset of professors who have no interest in doing research. Either they weren't trained that way, and so they wouldn't be the right people to supervise research, or they just don't have an interest in it, either anymore or ever. And then there's actually a very good opportunity to conduct your own research. So the research design course, you have to run 1 or 2 research projects depending on the timeline and the scope of what's going on, and whether or not we have things like shutdown interfering with the class. But even outside of that, you can approach professors and say, hey, this is a study I have in mind. Would you be willing to sign off on the ethics so that it can be approved and go through our ethics board, and I can run the study, but you're just sort of helping me with it on a minimal level? Or some professors are actually quite interested in helping on a much deeper level of actually becoming really involved in the project. It just depends on who the professors are when you apply and who you get to work with and what their schedules and their lives and classes look like. There are assistantships for the program, so 10 last I heard, and I don't think that changes as a result of COVID, but it's possible, so definitely check with people if you're applying here. Stipend that goes along with that is sort of based on a graduate assistantship of helping professors about 20 hours a week. The book says 20 hours, but with how academia rolls, the first week probably won't be 20, and then finals week might be 25, and so it's sort of a rolling 25-hour average that, so it could be higher or lower depending on the needs of the professor and depending on who you get assigned to. And it's likely that you'll be assigned to 2 professors, because my cohort and the previous cohort have all been assigned to 2 professors. You'll have some mix of helping with grading or helping leading labs that go along with classes, or research as sort of a lab coordinator, or just running their research and perhaps helping supervise the undergraduate research assistants that they have in their lab. And so really it does depend on who you're working with, what you will do. But I'd say that overall is a pretty interesting deal. And that's $9,200 or so over 9 months, which is, I think, all right for a master's. It's about half of what you get at a PhD program from what the programs I looked at said. Take that for what you will. I think it's good experience. It looks good on Avita. But if you're in a spot where you need to make more money, I'd say it's challenging, or at least it can be, at least for me, to have a job outside of school and the assistantship. But it is possible to do, as there are students who have done that in my cohort. I'd say next is that this is a general psychology program. It's very broad. It's not designed to specifically prepare you for one type of program, but to prepare you for psychology, PhD, or doctoral PsyD programs in general. And that if you have a specific idea of where you want to go and you're really looking for research experience, so they like a clinical program, they tend to like a lot of research experience, this would be a great option. There might be better options, perhaps in a research-focused clinical psychology master's. That might be better just because you get the clinical aspect as well, and you probably have some sort of counseling experience as you're applying, which I think would help set you apart even more. But for just a general research-driven program, I think it holds up. And that has been a valuable experience for me in more ways than just the classroom, but managing time and learning to work with people and supervising students who are older than, say, 12 years old. Yeah. And I think if you wanted to, you could use this program as sort of a terminal degree where you don't go on to a PhD, but you use it so that you can teach at a university at, say, an adjunct level, or perhaps in some cases like a visiting professor at a junior college, so that you have this sort of broad background in psychological classes that are taught to undergraduate students or associate level students, and that you could make your living being a professor, or I assume you can be called a professor with a master's. Yeah, you can be. Anyway, I think that's all the major points of this master's program. I'm sure that there are more specific questions that could be answered, but I haven't been able to think of them. And if I sat down and thought of them, this would end up being a fairly long video. So if you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the description below. I'd be more than willing to get in touch with you, talk to you about this program in more detail, or to answer the specific questions you have to the best of my ability as my experience allows. So until next time, cheers.